Okay, well, I wasn't originally going to speak about this, but I feel there's a lot of people over there who need to know exactly what they are campaigning for. So I'm going to start. Trans rights are human rights, and we all know that. But what are human rights? And that is, in the UK, that is the Human Rights Act 1998, which sets a number of human rights. That's the European Convention. I won't list them because I can't remember all of them. I don't have my notes with me. But, so, trans rights activism, they have all the human rights in the convention. They always have had them. So, what does trans rights or human rights really mean? Well, it comes from the phrase, women's rights are human rights, and that phrase was coined by Hillary Clinton in a speech where she talks about femicide, sex-selective abortion, the fact that the biggest danger to women aged 14 to 44 is the violence they're subjected to in their own homes. She talks about breast ironing and foot binding, various violations of women's human rights, which happened around the world in 1995, which is when the speech was given. It's all still relevant now to women. Women is killed every 2.5 days in this country by often by a close relative. And this is something that women face. They can't identify out of it. It happens because of their sex. So what trans rights activists are actually campaigning for is a removal of some women's human rights under the Human Rights Act. And I will take you through the 5-6 articles. So the first article they're in breach of is the most grievous one. It's Article 3, which is freedom from torture or inhuman and degrading treatment. So torture has a solid legal definition of a public official or person acting in an official capacity commits the offence of torture in the UK or elsewhere if he intentionally inflicts severe pain or suffering in the performance or purported performance of his official duties. Bit of a tongue twister, that. So that is the Criminal Justice Act definition. The reason I want to talk about that is for something to fit that definition, there has to be 3 parts of that satisfied. And this is, the context of this is women in prison. So an official person acting in an official capacity, that would be whoever sanctions the transfer of male inmates into women's prisons. The severe pain or suffering is very much on the testimonies. You can see them on this Keep Prison Single Sex site. Women will refuse to shower because of the indignity of showering with men. Constant psychological trauma, because many of these men have been convicted of serious violence against women, and given the conviction rates, it's going to be extreme violence. And this is constant psychological trauma. 60% of women in prison have been abused by men. So imagine having so much trauma that the mere sight of a man gives you an uncontrollable fear response. These women, they won't use communal facilities, and they are in constant mental distress. And they fear being raped in a woman's prison. And the last part of that definition is intent, and that is if you are aware of a very likely consequence of your action, it qualifies as intent. So yes, the officials sanctioning this are committing torture as an offence. And these people support the torture of women in prison. The next article I will go through, and I will deal with 2 together because they are very similar. Article 9 and Article 10, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, respectively. So this protects the right for people to express opinions via speech, television broadcasts, tweets, posters, radio programs, etc., etc. And speech is protected even if it's offensive, so long as it is not advocating for violence. That is where the line is drawn in the UK. These guys advocate for us to not have that. And any company firing a woman for expressing that belief is in breach of that. And that's why we've had these wins for legal cases of Maya Forstater, Alison Bailey, etc. And just as I've name dropped Maya Forstater, I will mention the petition, which we all know about. If you haven't already signed the petition, please come to me. I have many QR codes. So that's freedom of speech and expression, and these guys again are campaigning against it. Article 11 is freedom of association. This includes single-sex spaces, women advocating for women. These don't think women should have any right to any space away from men. Well, under the Human Rights Act, we have freedom of association, and we can associate with who the hell we want, and if that includes women only, then that is legal. The next one. Okay, so Article 14, this is a little bit more complicated. It protects a number of things: race, religion. This is non-discrimination due to race, religion, language, social class. And there are two strands to this. First is abolition of single-sex spaces contravenes Article 14 in the context of Orthodox Jewish and Muslim women who require single-sex spaces to change. They have a religious right to that. And then we have inclusive language. Not dehumanising at all, menstruators, cervix havers, person with a womb, all of that. This discriminates against ESL women, particularly those whose first language is a non-European language, and it also discriminates against working class women. So ESL women, and again particularly those who don't speak a European language as their first language, they know what a woman is. It's a very basic English word. They might not understand cervix havers and menstruators. Working class and lesser educated women, who are not one and the same, we know many women don't know all the names of their anatomy. We know education around it is still terrible even in the developed world. These people, all of these people, when they're told they need people with a cervix have this issue or need a screening, they might not register that includes them. So why don't we use the truly inclusive women and other people with a cervix? You could use that. But no, because these want to erase women. And am I to assume, in a medical context, the lives of our immigrant and working class women are worth less than middle class men who want to barge in on womanhood? Lastly, Article 17 states you cannot campaign for removal of rights. Trans people have all the rights. We are not campaigning to remove them. They have all the rights and can go to all the spaces. Male people can for trans women, female people can for trans men. And no one is wanting to change that because there are people who need those rights. But these guys, these want to abolish the women's rights I've talked about. They want to stop us using our language. They want to stop our association. They are perfectly happy with women in prison being tortured. And this has to stop. This has to stop now. Because they don't know what they're campaigning for. They will not listen to other people because they know they're wrong, which is why they dress like pound shop black shirts.